Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. The story that I'm going to tell you today was written by me, and I'm hoping a lot of you from Natchez will remember this. Back in the 50s when we had a terrific snow and ice storm, all the trees iced over and there was snow everywhere. It was very exciting. Anyway, the name of this story is called The Snow. Oh no! Mom and Daddy were calling us into their bedroom and it was barely daylight. We all jumped out of our beds and ran in their room as fast as we could. Penny and I clutched hands. Something had to be wrong for them to be waking us up and hollering to hurry. We ran through their door and they were both standing at the windows that ran floor to ceiling, beaming at us. "Look, girls, it's snowing!" Well, in Natchez, Mississippi, that was all but unheard of. And yet, as we all crowded next to the window, we saw large, beautiful, fluffy flakes of snow, and it was falling fast. Mama, who was clapping her hands and smiling from head to toe, said, "Quick, girls, everybody dress warm. We'll eat breakfast and go out to play." I swear, Mama was as giddy and excited as we were. We had a breakfast of hot oatmeal and toast, and then Daddy said, "You girls bundle up and wear your hats and gloves." We all got dressed and were so bundled we looked like polar bears and we could hardly move. We got ready to go and had to wait. Mama couldn't find her gloves and it was freezing outside. We all took turns looking upstairs and downstairs, in the closets, everywhere we could think of. Then Helen remembered she had an extra pair and Mama could wear those. Perfect. They were a little bit tight, but all in all they fit, so we were on our way. We went into the front yard and felt like our world had been transformed into a white winter wonderland. The yard was wearing a huge white blanket and we couldn't wait to jump in it, but we had to go slow because the sidewalk was slick and frozen over. We held on to each other slowly, making our way into the middle of the yard. And then it was every man for himself. The snowballs were flying, the squeals were deafening, and we were in hog heaven. All our neighbors were out on their lawns doing the same thing. Our parents were taking pictures and trying to keep all of us on our feet. Penny Ann and I were throwing snowballs at each other, and Helen and her best friend Sissy Valentine, who had spent the night, were building a snowman. We could see Jean Nasa and her family across the street doing exactly the same thing. Mama suggested we take a walk over to the bluff, and Daddy went in and got some of Mama's large aluminum trays to take with us. Penny and I weren't sure what the trays were for, but we soon found out. Once we got to the bluff, Daddy put us on them, gave us a slight push, and off we went down the hill with braids flying and us screaming at the top of our lungs. We loved every second of it. Mama helped Helen, Ann, and Sissy build another snowman. Mama said this one had to be perfect because we would all pose in front of him, and there was no telling if or when we would ever see snow again. Daddy put his hat on Mr. Snowman, and Mama put her scarf and gloves on him for the picture. Daddy took it quick because it was freezing, and Mama needed her scarf and gloves, and Daddy needed his hat back. We played for about an hour, and Mama said we had to go. It was time for lunch, and we needed to thaw out. We got home and ate lunch, all talking at once about the snow and tray sleds. The TV said most of the snow would be gone by the next morning, but we had a fantastic day. We knew we'd never forget it. Penny Ann and I went upstairs after lunch to take a nap. Leola was ironing, when she always did, in our room. We loved to smell the starch as the hot iron hit the damp clothes, and then, in that quiet, peaceful, warm room, we heard all hell break loose. Mama was screaming and crying and carrying on something fierce. Leola and the rest of us went flying down the stairs. What was wrong with Mama, and where was Daddy? We found Mama in the living room, holding out her hands and just inconsolable. She managed to get out through her tears. "I lost my wedding ring. I must have dropped it in the snow on the bluff when I took off my gloves for that picture of the snowman. Your daddy's gone to look. It's gone." I said, "But Mama, you always said your rings were tight. How'd they slip off?" Wrong thing to say as Helen gave me warning looks and Mama continued to cry. When she could, she explained that when your hands got really cold, your fingers shrunk, and she was just having so much fun she didn't realize it was gone. Mama told us to go back upstairs. She needed some alone time. Daddy was gone forever, and when he got back home, it was almost dark. He told Mama he looked everywhere, but with all of the snow in the late hour, he did not see her ring. He promised to go back the next morning. Mama was so quiet all night and went to her room telling Daddy and Helen to get us to bed. Penny and I heard Mama crying right up until we fell asleep. I thought my heart was just going to break. Mama never cried. We had to find that ring. The next morning, Daddy told us to be quiet and to tiptoe downstairs. He said Mama was up most of the night and he wanted her to sleep, that he would fix us breakfast. He offered us eggs, bacon, pancakes, whatever we wanted. In unison, we all replied, "Cereal, please, Daddy." We had been privy to a few of Daddy's breakfasts, and we were not going to make that mistake again. We had heard Mama telling our neighbor Eloise that day, Daddy couldn't even boil water when it came to cooking, but we never told Daddy what Mama said. After we finished breakfast, Daddy told us we could go to the bluff and help him look for Mama's ring. Helen stayed home so she could tell Mama where we were when she woke up. When we got to the bluff, most of the snow had melted, and the sun would shine on the dew in the grass, causing a sparkle which we just knew was Mama's ring. There were several "I found it," but finally Daddy said we needed to get back home. We'd come back when the grass was dry and all the snow was gone. Our hearts were heavy. Daddy looked so sad as we walked in the house. We knew he didn't want to tell Mama he'd found her ring. Actually, that he hadn't found her ring. Over the next few days, Mama tried to perk up, and we periodically took walks to the bluff and scanned every inch of that grass, but we didn't find it. The weather went right back to normal winter, no more snow, and not even that cold. Every now and then, I would catch Mama looking at her hand and running her hand over her bare finger. Every night when we said our prayers, Penny and I would include a silent, and God, please let Mama find her ring. As winter escaped and spring tiptoed in, Mama said we needed to have our annual spring cleaning. This was a chore we dreaded every year. Mom and Leola would start with the parlor, and for 2 to 3 days, every curtain, rug, floor, and room was stripped, pulled up or taken off and cleaned or polished till it shined. Our jobs were to pick up all our winter clothes and accessories, including coats, scarves, gloves, hats, and put them in one place for Mama to put back in the closets. Helen wasn't feel well that day, so Mama told us to gather her things to be put away. I went in her room and grabbed her scarves and gloves, and Ann and Penny grabbed her coat and sweaters. As we were headed to Mama's room to put them in the pile, I decided to try on Helen's gloves, just like Mama. Helen had 2 pair, but the ones I loved were the soft gray ones that she hardly ever wore because Play Mama had given them to her, and they were cashmere and still too big for her. I slipped them on, pushed my finger all the way to the bottom, and wait! I felt something. I pulled my hand out, turned the glove inside out, and saw the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, Mama's ring. When Mama had borrowed Helen's gloves on that snow day, when her fingers shrunk from the cold, her ring must have slipped off and was caught in the bottom of the glove. Penny and Ann saw it as soon as I did, and we all started whooping and hollering and jumping up and down. Mama came running in her room yelling, "Girls, hush! You'll wake the dead. What's going on?" And then, that quick, Mama saw it. Her ring. I get teary, you all, just remembering her face. She looked at us and gently took her ring and put it back on her finger. She fell into that great big pile of winter clothes and pulled us all in with her. Mama was crying, but soft, quiet tears, and smiling through it all at the same time. I felt so good that day. I remember the feeling of seeing the joy and happiness in my Mama's face as she looked at her hand throughout the day. It was never about the ring itself. It was what it represented, a beautiful reflection of the enormous love she embraced for my Daddy. I knew those nightly prayers had something to do with my finding it. And please, God, let my mama find her ring. I went to sleep that night wondering if that prayer worked on getting puppies too.